I'm sure a lot of you saw, I got a chance to play some Rivals recently. The game's fun. I like Rivals. I think it's a good time. But I do feel bad. My timing seems to have been off on when I jumped into the game. I don't have a lot of experience with games of this style. So I figured Rivals 2 would be a good jumping in point because I knew that it just came out. It's pretty different, is my understanding, than Rivals 1. I figured there was like a lot of new players trying the game. My experience was kind of not like that. Playing Rivals 2 as a new player feels like what it's like to play a fighting game if you started playing it like 2 or 3 years in. It's not made in a way that's like, all right, you never played a platform fighter and you want to like get in here and try this. Come on in. I think it can be, but the game just doesn't have like a tutorial yet. And I know why. I'm a streamer. I have a chat that can explain to me when I boot up a game and the only tutorial is like a Steam image. I have a chat room that could be like, well, the game was a Kickstarter and then part of the Kickstarter goals was having a tutorial and launch, but they didn't make it in time. And they're going to add a tutorial later and don't worry about it. It'll be in the game eventually. And like, you know, people can explain this to me. I can only imagine what it's like for people who are not streamers who just like bought Rivals 2 and played it. The monkey paw is real. I've liked Sajam's content for a long time and I get to watch an hour video of him illustrating why launching without tutorials might have been a huge mistake. I don't think it was a huge mistake for them to launch the game without a tutorial. I just think that there's a difference between me and the people they made the game for, probably, right? I don't really have any blame for the Rivals team. Like, I think the game is super fun. And I get the vibe that Rivals 2 is basically made for people who love platform fighters. My takeaways were very interesting. It was mostly about learning the game as a new player, and some of the things that I read were very fascinating. So many people were like, I guarantee you, all these people asking for a tutorial in the game didn't even kickstart the game. Fund it when you guys needed money and yada, yada, yada. How dare they want tutorials? That's true. I did not kickstart the game. I simply bought it. How am I supposed to know that I was supposed to go retroactively kickstart it for a certain amount of money to get a tutorial in the game that I bought? Like, how am I supposed to know? There's a lot of comments that said things like, yeah, the game doesn't have a move list, but you don't really need one for a platform fighter anyway. I totally disagree. What does Zetterburn's fire do? I ask myself as someone new to the video game who's never played Rivals before, what does this fire mechanic do? What does my character's bubble do, the frogman? What does the poison stacks do? How do the daggers work? What does the tongue do? He has a super jump. What does the maple character's plants do? How does the float mechanic of fleet work exactly? And like the powered up arrows of the character work exactly, right? How exactly the unique mechanics of the character move and how they interact would have been really nice to know without having to look for an outside resource to start with. It's really interesting because I think about the new player experience a lot as someone who teaches people. The support and understanding of a new player a lot of times in the game is twofold. There's two factors, basically. One, you need in-game resources to teach you how to play the video game. Here's how you move. This is how this works. This is how that works. The second part is the resources outside the game need to be equipped to help. Because if you've ever played any game ever, you know that it's not only the tutorial that teaches you how to play the game. I'm sure all of you have this experience. You play the tutorial of a game, you go play ranked or whatever it is, and then you're like, the tutorial didn't teach me any of the stuff I need to know to go beat up a human being now, right? Every game is like this. Like when you play League of Legends, it's not like you play the tutorial and then after you play the tutorial, you're equipped to go play on the Rift in ranked matches against other people. There's like a world of information that you have to learn from other resources to go play the game effectively. And you can either learn that by playing the game or by watching hours of content or like things that people will teach you about the game outside of it, right? It's both. And the most interesting takeaway for me from Rivals is that all of the content I watched a ton. So much of the content is outfitted for experienced platform fighter players. I do this for every game I play. I play it myself and then afterwards I go look up someone else playing it or go watch stuff to teach it. And then I come back and like implement that stuff, right? I went to watch videos learning the game and basically every video was like, all right, so if you come from Melee, this character's Sheik and this character's Fox and you want to do this and like you want to just use this tilt and then edge guard with this and then do that and then like every piece of content for that game feels like it was made specifically for Melee players. I didn't come away learning very much, I feel like, from trying to consume content and like looking up stuff about the game. I've actually found picking up Rivals to be harder than most of the genres of video games I've played. And not just because the gameplay itself is unintuitive. I just couldn't find a lot of resources to learn it. A lot of it feels like it's me, the guy. I need to go solve that shit on my own and just figure that shit out. Honestly, Deadlock, when it was in closed alpha, you couldn't publicly make content about it. I found more guides in the Discord for that than I did like searching openly for rival stuff. I always feel like there's a pretty large casual audience for most platform fighters. So I assume that content that would teach a new player would not only exist, but be pretty popular. There's almost no like, hey, if you've never played a game like this before, here's what you want to do. Here's some stuff you need to know. The main way you should move around the screen. Here's the main way you should attack and the types of attacks you should use. Here's the main way you should get back to the stage once you get hit, or what you should do when you're being comboed. A video covering those topics from like a perspective of someone who's never played the genre before would go so far in helping people get in and play. My experience playing the game as a new player is that basically almost everybody I've run into, it's clear that they have some experience with other platform fighters. I would advise you to like look at someone's experience like mine and build resources that would solve issues for someone like me, because I'm not the only me. My experience is probably the experience of most people, whether they have a stream or not. Like I have a stream to help me, which, you know, Twitch chat can be a blessing or a curse. I'm sure literally every other person who's tried the game that's never played a platform fighter or has limited experience has the exact same experience as me. Whatever thing was not intuitive to me, and you may have been like, how does this idiot not know that you can do X? Every other person who's never played the game is also that idiot, and so were you. At one point, you were also an idiot who didn't know how to do any of that. If you played one of the games that I'm an expert in, and you didn't know how to do something, I wouldn't think, this idiot doesn't know how to do this. I would think, oh yeah, of course you don't know how to do that. Well, this is how this works. And I would just tell you how it works. And if you don't believe me, go look up my 2xKO videos. That game launched an alpha with basically no tutorial. It might as well have not had one. And the day that game came out, I made tutorials and guides for every character in the game, and also basic guides on how to play the video game. And if I played you in that game, I wouldn't call you some idiot bad new player. I would tell you, if you're having trouble, maybe you should look at one of the many resources I created to help make the game easier for you. Myself and a lot of others immediately made, here's the basics of how you play the game guides. Like they existed immediately, right? I figured Rivals would be the same because it's been out for a little bit. Like I didn't even get in on it the day it came out or anything, right? For me, I try to make content for all levels of play for the games I enjoy. I try to make stuff that's like very beginner friendly. I try to make stuff that covers intermediate ideas and like how to get you past that. And I try to make stuff that's like, here's high level analysis or breakdowns of stuff. Especially like when the game is new, I tend to make broader content as the game exists for longer and make more intermediate and advanced stuff. The thing about all content generally, especially educational content, is that it's evergreen. Someone will be brand new trying to learn a game that's a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years old, right? Like someone is going to be trying to learn Guilty Gear Strive when season 4 comes out. And if you have guides from 4 years ago, they'll mostly be applicable to the game now. I try to make a lot of guides also that are, hey, when you want to play this character or this game, just go out there and do this stuff. This stuff is all good. Character guides that are not like, yeah, you can wave shine and do this and do, like I was watching these Rivals guides like, bro, I can't do any of that shit. Hold on. If you someone on the right track of just go use these good moves, they'll make it pretty far. You know, they'll use the moves a lot and then they'll realize where the moves are not good or where the moves are good, and like they'll make some adjustments. Teaching new concepts and ideas to people who've never experienced it is also not a skill that everybody has, for sure. Making the content is easy if you know how to make the content and you have the knowledge. That being said, that combination of things is usually not common. Yeah, that's also true. You need to know that the person talking about it knows what the fuck they're talking about. This video I made during the 2xKO alpha about some tech, just like how like something in the game works. For me to make this video, which it did quite well, like a lot of people were interested in it, it took me like 10 seconds to be like, oh, I should probably make a video for this. And then afterwards it was like, okay, what examples should I show? So I went into training mode for less than 5 minutes and like thought of the examples, and then I filmed the video. I would say from like the time I thought about this to the end, it probably took 10 minutes to make this video. So when people like don't make videos like this, it's always surprising to me, because I promise you the effort and time it takes to make simple versions, because the reason that takes no time is there's no editing, and like someone could crank out tons of videos like that for their favorite game very easily. That's if you have the know-how and you can demonstrate stuff and like explain it in an easy way. I watched gameplay to like learn how the game works, and I noticed when people in platform fighters want to edge guard against a character that's off stage, they run to the side of the stage and then they face away from their opponent and then they jump off the stage. I played fighting games for a long time, so in my brain when I saw someone do that, I was like, okay, there must be a reason, but I have literally no idea why. Like it would never be a natural thing that I would do as a player who's never played a platform fighter before. Why would someone do that? Like, why is that good? Most characters, they gain access to their back airs, right? Back airs are useful attacks that you might want to do, and that's really nice. The second thing is it allows you to grab the ledge by just jumping off the stage. I didn't even realize that you couldn't jump off the stage and grab the ledge facing the other way as easy. It wasn't even something that I had considered. I like went and thought about it and figured it out and like reverse engineered it. You could probably do like a 1 minute or 2 minute video about why it's useful to do that very easily, as an example. That's another thing. I didn't realize you just have invuln when you grab a ledge and then come up, but then if you grab the ledge and then jump off and do an attack really quickly, you have invuln frames. I would have never thought about like that being a good thing until I tried it. And I was like, That's another thing that I think that I'm pretty good at, that I think some people who make tutorials or who think about fighting games or other games might not be very good at. Understanding what's intuitive and like what you need to explain about a fighting game in a guide or a tutorial that might not make sense to someone. Which is funny because a lot of people, like when I make content that's like fighting games are not the hardest thing ever, you can learn them. A lot of people are like, Sajam forgot what it's like to learn a fighting game. But I also learn other genres of games constantly, and I teach fighting games and other genres of games constantly. In the last year, I've taught new players Tekken and 2XKO and Street Fighter. Having platform fighter backgrounds or having a 2D background learning a 3D game or a 3D background learning a 2D game, and being literally brand new to the genre, like having no fighting game experience. And then also taught many other people different genres of game. Like the deeper you're into something, the harder it is to pull your brain out and be like, what does someone who's never played before think? The more you like come back and relearn a game from different perspectives, the more you start to know from the start what is unintuitive, and you have to like pre-warn someone about like, hey, you probably don't know this, but this is like this weird thing about the game and this is how it works, like just as a heads up. And like not only that, but like being able to tell someone the game works this way, don't worry about it. As a good example, I always think about when Eris, he made a tutorial about getting up off the ground, and he said basically, hey, when you get up off the ground, there's lots of shit you can do. This is the safest, best way to get up on the ground. Like when you get hit, you hit this button and it gets you up off the ground the quickest, the safest, the best. This is what you want to do. Don't worry about the rest of it. There's lots of other ways to get up. You can learn that shit later. Trust me, this is what you want to do most of the time. It's great. And when you're a new player, you're absorbing so much information in Tekken. That little bit of advice goes a long way because you have so many other things to worry about in the game that getting up off the ground when you get knocked down is like not something you're going to spend a long time on. I remember watching that and thinking this is a great thing to do in a tutorial. And I'll never forget, I saw Leffen when he was learning Tekken 7, watch that tutorial, and Leffen was like furious because he's like, what do you mean none of the other options are important? I need to know all of the exact ways I can get off the ground and like why they're important, right? And I thought that was so funny because it was the most opposite reaction for the vast majority of people, myself included. Like the vast majority of people in Tekken, you don't need to know any of that shit. You just need to know what's the safest, best way to get up off the ground. I'm going to do that 99% of the time. The whole concept of like why this is important, you have to figure out how to tell them, don't worry about all that shit, in a way that doesn't make them think that they need to worry about all that shit, Don't stress about it. Just do this and you're good. And then later on, when you're like an adult, you can learn more mechanics. I'm just the test run because really this game, it launched, but it's already going to come out with lots of new features and there's a long roadmap. And what you should be doing now that the game is out, you should be building evergreen resources. And if you don't want to build them, assemble resources for when new players interface with your game, being able to send them in the correct location to find the things they need to find. And if you're saying, why me? Well, because you like your game and you probably should. I'm sure that people will do this eventually, but I'm telling you, you should if you haven't already started. I'm going to give it another spin. I don't know if I should wait until the game has a tutorial to play it again more, or just like keep playing it and learn it despite it not having a tutorial. I don't know which I'm going to do.